the college party, someone suggested we all share how old we were when we lost our virginities. My stomach sank. I was 20 years old and still a virgin. I considered lying, but what number would I choose? Too young, you're a slut. Too old, you're a prude. But how could I admit to this group of people that I hadn't had sex yet? Would they laugh? Would they think I was a total loser? At 20, I thought being a virgin was the most embarrassing, shameful secret. And it was a secret I kept until I was 25 when I made my sexual debut. I say sexual debut, a term that psychologists are using, because we all lose the way we talk about virginity. It's about time we start using a more sex-positive framework to describe our early sexual experiences. Sex positivity is an attitude that regards all consensual sexual activities as fundamentally healthy. It makes no moral or ethical distinctions between heterosexual sex, homosexual sex, masturbation, or asexuality. So why isn't virginity sex positive? Our most commonly accepted definition of virginity is related to sexual intercourse: male, female, penis, vagina, penetrative sex. But what about other kinds of touching? Hand stuff, oral sex, toys, kinks. If it's not a penis and a vagina, it doesn't count. Most women can't even achieve orgasm from penetrative sex. This definition of virginity is narrow, male-centric, and heteronormative. It excludes sex between LGBTQIA partners, people with disabilities, and those with sexual dysfunction. Basically, it implies that only straight, cis, able-bodied people have sex, which is just not true. Virginity also comes with a few medically inaccurate indicators for people with vaginas: pain, bleeding, and the breaking of the hymen. These are all myths. Young girls are told that sex is going to hurt, at least the first time. But sex shouldn't hurt. Not the first time, not ever. Unless you're into that sort of thing. Despite what rapper T.I. thinks, an intact hymen cannot prove whether or not someone's had sex. All hymens are stretchy and vary in elasticity. A hymen can break from riding a bicycle, playing sports, or using tampons. But it may never tear, and it may or may never bleed. No wonder so many young women are afraid of having sex. We teach them to expect and accept bad sexual experiences instead of empowering them to be advocates for their own pleasure. Sex should be good for them too. There are generally a lot of inequalities and power dynamics in our vernacular around virginity. Rather than discussing sex even the first time as a shared experience with an even exchange of pleasure and intimacy, we talk about virginity as if it's something tangible that we give or take. We're told to hold on tight to it and to save it until we can give it to someone worthy. The person we give it to takes it from us and keeps it forever, giving them a lot of power and lifelong significance. We say that we lose our virginity, implying there's a winner and a loser, two people competing against each other rather than playing with each other. So, who's losing what and who's winning what exactly? I hadn't had sex into my 20s because I had a pelvic floor condition called vaginismus, where the muscles in and around my vagina would involuntarily contract, making penetration not only extremely painful, but also impossible. I realized something was wrong when I was 14 and started my period. No matter what I tried, I could not insert a tampon. Over the course of the next 7 years, I visited a dozen doctors who couldn't tell me what I had or how to fix it. Finally, when I was 21, I was referred to a pelvic floor physical therapist and found out I wasn't the only person with this problem or others like it. It's estimated that 24% of women will have some sort of pelvic floor dysfunction at some point in their lifetime. In our first appointment, my physical therapist promised me that I'd one day be able to use tampons and have sex. I was skeptical, but after a few months in PT, I used a tampon for the first time. Having sex finally felt like a possibility, and I wanted to do it so badly. But not so much because I was really interested in having sex, as much as I didn't want to be a virgin anymore. Losing your virginity is a rite of passage, one that society tells us makes us an adult. I was the last of my friends to cross that frontier. People my age were not only dating and having sex, but they were getting married and getting pregnant. I was just getting used to tampons. My virginity made me feel embarrassed, ashamed, and infantilized. It made me believe that I was unattractive, undesirable, and undateable. Historically, being a virgin was a good thing. Virginity is synonymous with morality, purity, and value, at least for women. The Virgin Mary's virginity is what made her virtuous and moral, as opposed to Mary Magdalene, the former sex worker who was possessed by not one, but seven demons. A woman's virginity was a valuable commodity in marriage arrangements, property transferred from her father to her husband. And of course, those who already had sex were considered damaged goods and less desired. But sociosexual norms have changed. Today, having premarital sex is the rule rather than the exception. The average age someone has sex for the first time is 17 years old. According to the US Public Health Service, 75% of people 20 years old or younger have already had premarital sex. Being a virgin past your teens now has negative connotations. Many of the virgins in movies and TV shows are portrayed as uptight, self-righteous, or emasculated. Andy, the protagonist of The 40-Year-Old Virgin, is a wide-eyed man-child who dresses like a young boy, rides a bicycle to work, and keeps his apartment full of action figures. April Kepner, the 28-year-old virgin on Grey's Anatomy, is on all the internet listicles for most annoying and worst characters on TV. It's only after she has sex that the show's characters and the audience warm up to her, because apparently having sex makes you a more likable person. When professional football player Colton Underwood was a contestant on Becca's season of The Bachelorette in 2018, he admitted to Becca on a one-on-one date that he was still a virgin. The show cut between their conversation to the guys back at the house, who all predicted that she wouldn't give him a rose upon hearing this news. One of them added, "Sex is huge. I don't know how you could put a ring on someone's finger without knowing if there's any sexual chemistry." Colton never said that he was waiting for marriage, or that he wouldn't have sex with Becca if given the opportunity. So they were conflating sexual chemistry with sexual experience. First of all, sexual chemistry is not just the sex act itself. It also includes all the fun, sexy, flirty build-up to the physical event. Second, there's an assumption that sexually inexperienced people will be bad at sex, and they need to be taught how to do it. But isn't there a learning curve with every new partner? And just because you've had sex before doesn't automatically make you good at it. Raise your hand if you've had bad sex with someone who's already done it. Yeah, that's what I thought. Becca thanked Colton for his honesty and gave him the rose. While he was ultimately cut the next week, he went on to be the 2019 Bachelor, and ABC made a big deal about his virginity. The word virgin was mentioned 4 times in the first 40 seconds of the season's trailer. I guess Bachelor Nation just couldn't imagine how this good-looking athlete could make it to 26 years old without having penetrative sex. After all, there's a stigma to being an older virgin. In a study published by the Journal of Sex Research in 2017, sexually inexperienced adults were perceived as less attractive, and people were less likely to consider them as committed relationship partners. According to the Singles in America study by Match.com, 42% of people wouldn't even consider dating a virgin. So despite how smart, funny, or kind someone is, 42% of people would deem them completely undateable because they haven't had a penis in their vagina or they haven't put their penis in a vagina. Because of this stigma, we're encouraged to get it over with. The getting it over with mentality is probably the worst way we lose. I tried getting it over with before I was ready. In my early 20s, I never told the guys I was dating up front that I couldn't have sex. How could I? I liked them and I wanted them to like me back. I hoped that if I was turned on enough, my vagina would magically change and I'd be able to do it. And that was never the case. Whenever we would try to hook up and they would find out that penetrative sex wasn't in my wheelhouse quite yet, they dumped me. With every rejection, the older I became, I worried the worse my dating experiences would be and sex would never happen for me. But it eventually did. When I was 25, I went to South Korea for my friend's wedding. I instantly hit it off with the couple's friend, Jack. On our first day in Seoul, Jack and I took a self-guided tour through the city. We visited parks and temples, flirting, holding hands, and making out in tucked-away corners. I was eat, pray, loving my way through South Korea. That night, leaning against a bar, Jack asked me when the last time I had sex was. It could have been the alcohol in my system, or because I was on vacation, or maybe because he lived on literally the opposite side of the world, but I felt like being very, very honest. Sex? I've never had any. He choked on his beer. I told him I had vaginismus, and as usual, had to explain what it was. He asked if there was treatment for it. I answered, yeah, I see a pelvic floor physical therapist. I was downplaying this. I had been in physical therapy for 4 years. I did pelvic floor exercises on my own every day. I changed the way I sit, stand, breathe, and exercise. I had worked really hard, and I knew I was close to reaching my goals. I told him, I'm in a really good place. I think I could do it. Without skipping a beat, he offered to give it a try. We both burst into laughter, but then I worried, what if I couldn't do it, even if I really wanted to? He assured me that even if that were the case, there were other things we could do. We could still have fun. It's hard to remember when everyone's telling you that it's going to hurt and you're going to bleed and you should just get it over with, that sex, even the first time, is supposed to be fun. Sex is supposed to feel good. The next day, Jack and I took a train across the country to Busan, just the two of us. When we made it to our hotel, we started making out, and he led me to the bed. After fooling around for a bit, we decided to give old penetrative sex a try. I told him to insert himself on my inhale as I was taught to do in physical therapy. I took a deep breath in, and he slipped inside. It was beautiful and amazing and perfect. I did have some pain, but he took his time, checked in with me, and was a great listener. Afterwards, he kissed me, gently ran his fingers through my hair, and whispered, "You're worth a little patience." I couldn't help but cry. It was so overwhelming, and I was so happy. Having sex for the first time was a huge accomplishment. All the work I had done with my physical therapist and the exercises I mastered on my own paid off. But sex didn't make me a more complete person. Jack didn't take anything from me. It didn't feel like I was losing anything. It actually felt like a major win. I had been brave, listened to my body, and connected with someone in a really special way. I'm so grateful I didn't just get it over with one of the jerks I dated. It was 100% worth the wait. We need to stop talking about having sex for the first time as something to get over with by a certain age or life stage, but rather as something to look forward to when you're physically, mentally, and emotionally ready. Can you imagine if people approached having sex for the first time from a place of curiosity and exploration rather than fear and shame? Everyone loses in the way we currently talk about virginity. Its deep patriarchal roots serve to control women's bodies and sexual freedom. It validates only one type of sex and ignores all others. Worst of all, it makes people feel shame about their bodies, experiences, and sexualities. Let's ditch any language around virginity and adopt sexual debut. Sexual debut is inclusive to all bodies, genders, identities, sexualities, and types of sex. No one's taking anything from anyone, and no one is losing anything. What if having sex for the first time wasn't something we lost, but something we gained? Thank you.